Now, we've all seen this car quite a few times before. Last Auto Expo, we brought you a story when it was codenamed Kite 5. Well, now it is the Tata Tigor and it's all set for launch. It is based off the Tiago platform, and you can be forgiven for thinking that it looks a lot like the Tiago because it is up to the B pillar, save a few changes. Well, the nose is identical except for the smoke projector headlamps and the mildly different grille design. There are the split tail lamps that also share a hexagonal pattern from the grille. While the diesel variant gets the same 14-inch wheels, the petrol that you're seeing now gets 15-inch rims. Now, the big changes are when you view it around the side. Of course, for one, there is the wheelbase that's longer. And of course, here's where the Tigor sets out to be different from other conventional compact sedans that really take a boot and paste it onto a hatchback platform. This is where it carves out its own path. Here's where it becomes really stylish with this coupe-like roofline that just sort of melds into the rear. And of course, Tata designers have kept in mind the attributes of Tata cars, keeping in mind the extra headroom that one always has on the inside. They've sort of chamfered out this neat little edge over here, opening up more space on the inside. And coming round to the back, the boot as well has its own unique features. Let's take a look. The boot has hydraulic struts, which Tata like to call the 4-bar link as opposed to the conventional hinges. This has allowed them to widen the opening and get a lot more room inside the boot. It's a 490-litre boot, which is the largest amongst the sub-4-metre sedans. However, it must be mentioned that the opening of the boot is a little cumbersome because there is no button on the boot lid. You have to press a button on the central console, and that too can only be done when the ignition is on. We learned later that the Follow Me Home lamp button on the key doubles up as a boot release, but how would one ever know that? On the inside too, the layout is almost identical to the Tiago. It's a neat and simple layout, but it's still got some really nice touches that make it feel quite premium and nice. There's this textured finish on top of the dashboard, which gives it a sort of richer feel. Lots of chrome garnishing around, body-colored encasings around the air vents. The lower plastics are the only thing that let it down a bit because they're a bit hard. We also noticed the shut lines on the glove box did not quite match up, and small fit and finish issues like this still remain. But otherwise, you've got this piano glossy black around the central console that's used quite liberally. There's lots of storage spaces, so it's a practical cabin too. And of course, you have the touchscreen infotainment Connect Next system that gives you a lot of options as well. The touchscreen differentiates it from the Tiago, but the touch system is slow to react, and one finds themselves using the rotary dials much more to flip through the applications. There is a reverse camera, and whilst that works well, overall the screen is not bright enough. So in the day, the glare makes all the in-application screens quite unreadable. For the rest, the layout is similar to the Tiago, and the only differences are in the piano glossy black used on the spokes of the steering and the fabric used in the door pads. The cabin remains a practical one with ample storage spaces all around. Let's take a look at what the Tigor offers in terms of features. The Tigor shares its engines with the Tiago with identical torque and power figures. The petrol produces the same 85 HP and 114 Nm, which is similar to the Swift Desire and the Hyundai Accent. But the diesel, which produces 70 HP and 140 Nm of torque, seems underpowered in its segment. We drove the petrol engine to begin with. Now, you'll find it really easy to settle into a good driving position in the Tigor. The seat itself is comfortable, there's seat height adjust, steering height adjust, glass area is nice and big, so visibility is good. Everything falls to hand easily, so spending long hours driving this car will be hours easily spent. What else is really good if you're going to spend a long time in this car is the music system. It's got a really great set of speakers.
Hey, I was doing just fine before I met you. I drink too much and that's an issue, but I'm okay.
As you can hear, that's really quite nice for a car of this size. So, you know, if you're cutting that daily grind, spending long hours in traffic, the Tigor will make a good companion. Driving through city traffic and out on some open roads to test the cars, we found that the petrol engine coped well. This petrol engine feels smoother and nicer than it did in the Tiago. It's got this nice linear power delivery. Dabs on the throttle draw good responses, and you can amble around pretty easily too without having to work the gears too much. Overtakes come easily as well. It pulls cleanly, and honestly it really makes driving easy whether you're cutting through city traffic or whether you're cruising out on a highway. Though delivery is consistent and you never lack for power, it doesn't have the zing of its other competitors. But then, it's a heavy car at 1062 kg. We also tested the diesel engine. The diesel engine is not punchy or, doesn't have that kick of a turbo diesel, but it's got a nice linear acceleration, it's got good enough power. The power is really between 2 and 4,500 RPM. And if you drop below that mark while you're cruising, then you will have to work the gears to make overtakes. That's not necessarily a bad thing because the gearbox, though not very precise, is light and easy to use, and the clutch is light enough as well. Cutting through city traffic, the Tigor, because of its shorter gearing compared to the Tiago, accelerates a little more smartly. And it's only at higher speeds and highway overtakes that it falls short, where you have to shift down to get a move on. The diesel doesn't really have a strong top end, and when you push it, it feels overworked and sounds it too. Soon enough, we found a patch where we could also check the Tigor's handling capabilities around a few corners. You can carry a fair amount of speed into corners with the Tigor. It's actually quite stable and planted. And even the steering wheel, though it's light and easy in the city, it's got a nice heft when you're cornering at slightly higher speeds. It gives you a good sense of security. In fact, there is a fair amount of roll when you corner at higher speeds, but you don't really feel it inside the car. I too only realized it when I was checking the visuals on our camera. From behind the wheel, I felt secure, whether it was around corners or whether it was cruising down the highway. In fact, the impressive part of the Tigor was the balance between the ride and handling, which I realized when I got into the back seat. Well, the back seat of the Tigor is like every Tata back seat. It does have a good amount of room. They've scooped out the back of the front seat to add more leg room here, which is quite nice. Of course, I showed you earlier how the roof had been done so that there would be more headroom opening. There's a lot of it. There is a central armrest as well, and it does have some cup holders too. Though the seat cushioning is comfortable, the seat back has a larger degree of recline than one would like. But that was done to ensure there was adequate headroom. And even the seat base itself is really nice and wide. What they've done is extended the backrest from door to door so you can use the entire width of the seat and fit 3 passengers in quite comfortably. We also found a patch of road to give us a good sense of ride quality. Now we're going over a really bad section of road. It's quite unevenly surfaced, there are potholes, and it's great for testing ride quality, which I have to say is quite exceptional because what I see on the surface of the road is really not filtering in through to me as a passenger in the back seat. It's extremely pliant and comfortable, and I'm not feeling this bad section of road at all. Overall, though, the Tigor was not really exciting to drive, it felt comfortable and easy. And after spending a while with it, we realized that we quite liked it, despite its shortcomings. Tata Motors is a company on the move. They've been putting out good products one after the other ever since the Zest. But they didn't see a good amount of success right up until the Tiago. Well, the Tiago has brought back a huge amount of consumer confidence into the brand, and the Tigor is looking to build on that. Well, we've driven both the petrol and the diesel engines today, and we find that they're both capable engines. It's a spacious car, it's got a nice interior, it's well equipped, but what it's really got going for it is the styling. That's what sets it apart in its segment. It's what makes it not just a sensible package, but a desirable Tata car too.
If you've ever been bitten by the adventure bug, then you're well aware that one of the best ways to have an adventure is on a motorcycle. But what is it that makes a good adventure motorcycle? Now, in order to cover these massive distances, you're going to need a motorcycle that's extremely comfortable, has a decent amount of power, is on the lighter side, and is also off-road capable. Well, enter the Ducati Multistrada 1200 Enduro. Aside from being lightweight, this is what an apex modern-day adventure motorcycle looks like. Its sheer size will get your jaw dropping. Let's face it, it's an intimidating motorcycle to look at, but it will get you across continents, and we're here to see how well it fulfills that purpose. When you first approach the motorcycle, that front facade is sure to grab your attention. Its predatory front beak and that set of dual headlights with the high fly screen are a signature of the Multistrada series, although the Enduro version gets an even bigger front beak. But look beyond that and the proportions start to take on a more gargantuan nature. The 30-litre bulbous fuel tank sits authoritatively in the center of the motorcycle, and this is what really stands out on the Enduro. Its curves blend so seamlessly with the edges, and finally has a nice deep swoop into the seat. The rest of the seat, the pillion seat and the rear end is shared with the other Multistrada models. If anyone could make a purpose-built adventure motorcycle beautiful, it had to be the Italians. But what is it that sets the Enduro apart from the other Multistradas? Well, to begin with, it gets these spoke trims with a 19-inch front tire. And if you look closely, you'll notice that the spokes sit on the outside of the rim. This is what allows it to have tubeless tires. And the suspension on the Enduro gets 30 mm of more travel than the regular Multistrada. And there's a new pivot plate, which allows this Enduro to have a double-sided swing arm. Now, if you've ridden the other Multistrada models, the TFT instrument cluster is a rather familiar place. It is extremely well laid out, customizable, easy to read and light adaptive. The Multistrada's party trick is its rider modes. This can be accessed via the toggle buttons on the left switchgear, which are reasonably easy to use. Once you get the hang of navigating through the menu, it's simply amazing how customizable the entire motorcycle is just from the cockpit. With this top-of-the-line Multistrada model, everything from your suspension to your engine character can be controlled electronically. The 4 basic rider modes, Sport, Touring, Urban and Enduro, can be switched on the go. But while at a standstill, you can go into each mode and customize the character and limitations even further. Aside from the 3 levels of power output, which is 160 horsepower on high in Sport and Touring mode and 100 horsepower on low in Urban and Enduro, you have 8 levels of traction control, wheelie control and ABS. There's also 4 settings available on Ducati's electronic skyhook suspension and 24 levels of preload. So though it's a massive option list, it's quite easy to filter through to make the bike ideal for the riding conditions and your level of skill. So as you can see, getting on the bike can be a bit of a daunting task. I'm about 5 feet 10 inches and my feet are just about reaching the ground. This is definitely a bike for taller riders. But let's get this bike on the main stand and I can tell you a little bit more about the ergonomics. Now if you look at the profile of the bike, there's quite a dip from the tank to the seat. And this seat is extremely comfortable. The handlebars are nice and wide and you get this manually adjustable screen. And once you get it all the way up, the wind protection is just brilliant. All you need to do is just slightly tuck in and you could ride like this all day and there's no fatigue from wind blast. The Enduro gets Ducati's 1200cc Strata DVT engine, which stands for Desmodromic Valve Timing. Now what this does is regulate the valve timing based on the rider mode you're in and throttle input. This is managed by hydraulically operated camshaft phasers. What all of this does is ensure the engine pulls smoothly from 2000 RPM, so you don't have to sift through the gears too much. Although, in typically Ducati fashion, you really have to keep an eye out for the false neutrals between 4th, 5th and 6th gears. Otherwise, the throttle response is sharp and power feels good as the revs climb, with the bike pulling noticeably harder at around 6000 RPM. The crowning glory of the Multistrada is how well it changes its character in the different riding modes. Once you actually get moving, all premonitions of it being a ridiculously large motorcycle start to fade away. It is extremely manageable and rider friendly. But the big problem here, however, is the amount of heat generated in slow moving traffic. The larger tank restricts the flow of air around the engine and ends up sending searing levels of heat towards your left thigh. In touring mode, the suspension feels soft and absorbs bumps at all speeds beautifully. However, in the corners, it does tend to get a bit wallowy over bumps and hampers precision. In sport mode, the Enduro changes from a more relaxed nature to a very crisp one. Although the suspension is still a bit soft, the bike encourages you to push it harder. It tips into and tackles corners with poise and precision, not something you'd expect from such a large motorcycle. But it's the Enduro mode that really sets the Enduro apart. It just makes the motorcycle so much fun on the dirt. Although there's still a lot of physical muscling required here, with the ABS set at level 1, the front ABS remains active while the rear switch is off and allows you to lock up, square off and tighten turns. If you know what you're doing, this motorcycle could do trails all day, although it is way too heavy for the more technical off-road terrain. So all in all, we're quite impressed with how capable this motorcycle really is, despite its gargantuan proportions. But this is not a motorcycle for just anybody, and it's certainly not a city motorcycle. Its large size and overheating issues will make it painful to maneuver through tight traffic situations. Even if this motorcycle falls within your budget and you're large enough to manage its size, you also need the kind of skills to really appreciate what this motorcycle is capable of. But if you've managed to tick off all these boxes, we wish you all the best on all the adventures you have coming.
Welcome to a Speed Fest. Welcome to a Speed Fest, which is all about the fastest car crossing the finish line just a quarter mile away. This is the 5th year of the Valley Run at the Ambi Valley. And this year the competition is tougher than ever. Some of the quickest cars in India, whether street cars or professionally modified, come here every year in a quest to compete and go a little faster than just the next guy. Let's meet the competition and see how man and machine work together to provide green. Just a few kilometers of the Mumbai-Pune highway, nested between the scenic Western Ghats, is Ambi Valley. This is one of India's premier annual drag racing events, the Valley Run. Organized by Elite Octane, this is the 5th iteration of this festival of speed, which was initiated in 2013. And it witnessed over 600 entries, the highest ever at the event. There were Lamborghinis, Audis, BMWs, Hayabusas, Kawasaki Ninjas, and lots more eye candy for all the wide-eyed spectators.
We are in the 5th edition of Valley Run. There are a couple of special things we've got this year. Entry-wise, we've just grown from strength to strength. I think there are a lot of classes that earlier wasn't being formed. For example, the supercar classes. Now, this year, the supercar classes are packed. And yeah, I think 600 participants, that I think speaks for itself that it's the biggest.
Rangam has turned this whole thing around and made this basically like a Need for Speed thing.
If you ever go to a drag race event, the real way to witness the action is by going into the pits, where the team and mechanics are busy making the last minute changes and preparing the rides to shave off tenths of a second during their run. These dragsters were once everyday cars and bikes that have been transformed into tools purpose-built for speed. Fiberglass panels have replaced steel metal, seats and doors are gone, and under the hood is a monster waiting to unleash its fury. That's as far as a car or bike goes. For this sport, it is as much about the ride as the rider. Because when the Christmas tree goes amber, amber, green, a good part of how the next 402 meter rush past you depends on how the driver reflex skills and coordinations are.
Keep your eyes on the lights and keep your RPM ready at the optimal position, and that's it.
Just you have to focus on your bike and you. Even if the bike is slow, it depends on your riding. If you're riding, maybe the bike may win.
Perfect go, that is it's inside your motivations. You should keep motivating yourself inside. You should inspire yourself and be confident.
Now, besides a racer's natural reaction time, is there a better way to achieve that perfect go at green? We caught up with the best in the business, Ricky Gatsin, to tell us about the tips, tricks and skills required for drag racing. For those who don't keep a track of the sport, Gatsin is virtually the face of motorcycle drag racing. The 11-time American Motorcycle Association drag race champion came down to the valley to coach and train talented Indian racers to help them shave off their quarter mile, and boy did the training do the trick. The ones clocking at 12 to 13 seconds quarter mile were nearly a second quicker after just a day of training.
This year I came over to train students, and yes, I have seen a big difference. The students that came here have never been in the nines before. They're all running nines today.
He's got the Ricky Gatsin drag racing school here. He's trained a lot of the superbike participants who will be performing today. So we'll be seeing some really nice timings.
The quickest car this year was Dhwanil Patel's Lamborghini Huracan that clocked a time-dropping 11.293 seconds quarter mile. And on two wheels, it was Hyderabad's Neeraj Sharma, who dominated the stretch on his BMW S1000R, wrapping up his run in just 9.898 seconds. With that, it's a wrap-up of the 2017 edition of the Valley Run. Stay tuned to Autocar India for more drag racing action all over the country.